Your story is waiting for you today. Your story has something new to say. But your story will only come out to play when you're alone. Alone. Alone in a room with invisible people.
The following episode may contain swearing. Alone in a Room with Invisible People is brought to you by hollyswritingclasses.com. Hi, I'm Rebecca Galardo. I am the host of Alone in a Room with Invisible People. I'm here with author and teacher Holly Lisle, and today's topic is plotting versus pantsing. And I'm actually really excited about this topic today.
So am I.
Before we get started, though, how did you do this week?
This was a very good week for me. I should mention that we are actually catching up from having not done a show last week because we had done like 2 back to back. And then last week turned into a disaster week for me. So this week was much better. So at this point, I only have 1 scene left of The Owner's Tale. And I think I'm probably going to write that tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. And I I got lesson 5 done for how to write a novel. And I am now working on, no, I got lesson, did I get lesson 6 done? No. Okay. I'm making really good progress, but I'm not sure. I was about to have a whole lot better progress than I've actually had. I am working on lesson 6 now, and it's coming together really well, and I'm really excited about it. And I am also writing now a novel called Dead Man's Party, which I am doing as my demonstration project for the How to Write a Novel class.
I really like that title, too.
Well, I stole it from Oingo Boingo.
Yeah.
It was it was the song that actually was running through my head while I was building my artifact, and it turned into the phrase "Dead Man's Party" becomes just a really core part of the story, and it just came up out of nowhere, and it is so freaking cool. And I didn't even know how it was going to tie in until I was doing my live video for my Patreon people, where I was writing for an hour and I was doing that story, just the first scene of that story. And it ran a little short, so I just jumped into the second scene with just a few minutes left. And the dead man's party part just came to life on me. And it was like, holy shit, I didn't know that was going to happen. I had no idea what Dead Man's Party referred to until my fingers started typing that scene. And my mind was just following along going, holy crap, I can't believe this is happening. Oh, it was so fun. So I am very excited about that book. It's not like anything I've done before. And it's going to be, it's I don't even know what genre it's in. I got no clue.
Wow.
Yeah, but it is coming together very nicely, and I'm having fun with it. So it was a really good writing week for me. Okay, so over to you.
I kind of like the contrast in a way, because you had this fantastic week and I literally did nothing. And I actually initially felt really bad about this because, and I had mentioned in the past, being on this podcast really has been a driving force to get me to do more stuff and to be more motivated and everything. And I even started the Write a Book with Me, which I had a couple of people on Facebook working with me, and I had a bunch of people in the forums posting to the Write a Book with Me as well. And it was a lot of fun. It was a little bit, because it was a little bit short-lived so far. I am going back to that. But I hit this huge wall of depression. It's just everything all at once in 1 week just kind of went to shit. And between the fertility medication that I'm taking, the fact that obviously it did not work last month, so I'm not pregnant. My husband's dog that we've had since she was 8 weeks old is just started being incredibly sick. And I have 5 dogs, 6 cats, 3 turtles. I've had tons of rats. I have so many pets. He has this one dog, and I love him so much that I just broke down because that's his that's his princess, basically. I mean, he's not the overly affectionate, gushy type, but that's his. He even said, like, when we had to take her to the vet last year for she had breast cancer, and we also got her fixed. So the cancer came out. He even told the vet, he's like, "This is my princess. You know, anything, you give her all the pain meds, give her the best, whatever. I'll pay whatever. You know, just." And he's not like that. He's very, very frugal. The man will wait 3 months to buy something because it's 10 cents more than he wants to pay. So that shows how much he cares about that dog. So she started being really, really sick, and it was the night of the day of the hurricane that came through. So the very next day, I'm freaking out because she's getting worse, and I tell Tony, you know, we got to take her to the vet. So I take her to the only vet that I trust, because I've lost other animals because other vets are shit. And if, you know, Branches in Nashville, I doubt anybody around here is going to listen or, you know, knows anything about this, but Branches in Nashville, Georgia is just amazing. Dr. Hobby is the best damn vet there is. And they were closed and I found out later Nashville didn't have power, but I get there and I'm like bawling my eyes out and stuff because,
Yeah.
you know, I think, you know, God, it could be any minute now. But anyway, so I finally get her to the vet on Saturday, and we find out that she has congestive heart failure. And again, I'm bawling my eyes out because they don't tell you very much when you're there. So I get her medication, I come back and I did the research, and I found out that, you know, 30% of dogs get this, which was like, wow, that's crazy. And she can still live a normal life as long as we give her medication and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's just, that was a really positive ending to bad news, you know?
It was just everything all at once.
Yes,
the
it really
the
was.
hurricane and the dog and the medication and the fertility stuff. That's just a lot of stuff to have to get through in a week, man.
Yeah. A positive note on the hurricane, Tony wasn't actually here. He was at work, which is not the positive part. The positive part was he called me probably every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes, just to make sure everything was okay, that we were fine. And he's not a worrier, but, you know, when it came to this hurricane, he was. So
Yeah, well, and mobile homes probably not the place
not
where
the best, but this is actually not a bad area for it. It's not a big open field, and
Right.
you know, we don't have a whole bunch of pine trees right next to the house or anything like that, so we're okay. But yeah, so like you said, it was just everything all at once. And also, I'm gonna make a real quick note, just because I was depressed and just because I was, and this is a clinical depression kind of thing that I've been fighting for the last 10 years. It comes in waves. It doesn't last all the time. It's almost like when I come back, it's almost with this maniac kind of glee and stuff. But that's not a block. I don't use that as an excuse. I don't say, "Oh, I'm just blocked." I know that there are genuine blocks, like when you were on Prozac.
Yeah. That sucked.
Yeah, and this is not a genuine block. This was me being very, very depressed, not moody, not blue, not self, you know, pitting myself or anything like that. And I just wanted to mention this because I know a lot of other writers go through this kind of stuff too. And dog stuff aside, you know, I was already depressed. I was already feeling incredibly useless and worthless. I didn't do any art either. I just tried to use the week to do other things, make sure I got my work done as far as help desk and house and stuff like that. But I think sometimes we need to be able to acknowledge the fact that we're not going to be able to write every single day.
Yeah.
Even though we want to, even though that could be a goal and we could be doing very well, and we need to not be so hard on ourselves when we fail.
Yeah. Well, having dealt with depression myself, sometimes the best you can do is get yourself out of bed, get dressed, take a shower, and just move through the day. Sometimes that, just that, is all you can do. And you know, at the point where I was at my worst, when all of that crap was going on with when you guys were little, and yes, all of that crap. Sometimes it was just make sure people have food, make sure people go to bed at night and get up in the morning, and if you did that, that was a success for the day. And that's it. You got your animals fed.
Yeah. Oh,
You
and I made, I try to make lunch for Tony sometimes
Yeah.
before he goes to work. That made me feel better. Um, I tried to make the bed because they say, it's starting the day off with that one small thing that helps you. That's one small achievement or whatever.
Yeah.
So I would make my side of the bed, and later when Tony would get up, I would go make his because hey, the bed's made. It looks better when you go through. And I would do these little, just little things I learned from Fly Lady. She's a cleaning guru that I've been following for about 12, 13, 15 years, something like that. But it's just 2-minute hot spots. Basically, set a timer and just clean something for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and it helps you feel not so useless or worthless as your brain is telling you.
Yeah.
So that's and we don't normally go on tangents or anything like this, but I feel that this is something that a lot of creatives go through, and we have a lot of writers listening, and just know you're not alone. And if you need to talk to somebody that is another writer, again, Holly has the forums and they're free, and you can always go in and just say, hey, I'm going through this, because a lot of us have been through it too.
Yeah, and knowing that you have been through it before and have made it through it, sometimes you have to acknowledge that, well, yeah, this can still happen again.
Yeah.
So, both of us have experienced this. Both of us have gotten through it. And, we are certainly not the only ones. And
Yeah.
there are lots of people on the forums who are willing to just say, hey, okay, yeah, well, I've been through this too. And
it can be incredibly isolating when you're going through it, but if you can drum up the courage to go online and go to Holly's forums, again, like I said, they're free, and you just go in and you can even start something in the open writing discussion about what you're going through.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I promise you, it's a very active forum, and a lot of other people have been there.
Yes, and you will find that you are not in any way alone, and you don't have to be alone. All right, so
plotting versus pantsing.
Plotting versus pantsing, yes.
Like I said, I'm very excited about this one.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is such a strange topic, because there are people who are absolutely certain that they are, dyed-in-the-wool pantsers. They are not going to plot. They are going to go through and go into the darkness and just chase the darkness to the end and find what they're going to find. And there are people who are absolutely certain that they are plotters, and that they are going to write out detailed outlines with like 30 to 50 words per scene, and block out every single scene beforehand and get that story done. And the thing that you have to do when you are looking at this and you are saying, I am this, is say, okay, well, how is that working out for me right now?
I think a lot of people put too much stock into labels because it gives them an identity. And it's like, no, that's not good, because that can get stale, that can get old, that can limit you, Yeah.
Yeah. And that is one of the things that I found. I was taught how to outline a book, and it was to write one scene per scene, to plot out in advance. So about 100 words per scene, every single scene that was going to be in the book, an extended outline, the thing that you send off to a publisher when you are going to try and sell a book with just your first 20,000 words plus, your first 2 or 3 chapters plus your extended outline. And so I did not understand that this was a sales tool. I had it explained to me that this was actually how you planned your novel, and then you just wrote this way. And so I did it, and the only thing I discovered from using an extended outline to actually write a book was that no matter what I had on the page, it wasn't what I was going to write in the book.
Yeah.
That
I can imagine it also kind of kills the joy.
Oh my God. And people who write them, you can tell, because you can tell that they are taking an extended outline and expanding 100 words or 200 words or 250 words, whatever their block of extended outline is, that they are just writing from this thing, because
it's very stiff, very
it's
formulaic.
Stiff. Yes, there is no surprise. There is no moment in there where you are reading along and you're going, holy crap, I didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because everything, you can tell that the writer already knows everything is going to happen. There's no surprise for the writer. And if there is no surprise for the writer, there is no surprise for the reader, I got to tell you. And there is stuff that ends up in extended outlines that people then write out. And you, as you read through it, you want to just throw the book across the room because, oh, please. Okay, on the other hand, okay, I have also pantsed books.
Yeah, and pantsing, this is something that I didn't realize. And this was brilliant to me, what you said. When I was younger, I was reading Stephen King's books. And I loved his books. I still do. But his endings always disappoint. And you pointed out, you said, well, that's because he doesn't plot. He just pants. So when he gets to the end, he doesn't know how to end it. And I was like, holy shit, because his short stories are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you could not be more right. Just looking at the ending, especially of it was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he has, I have got to say, he has gotten better. Some of his more recent books that I have read, what is it, 11/22/63, I think.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet.
It's about John F. Kennedy and somebody who goes back in time to try and save him.
Ooh.
And it is brilliant. It is brilliant, and it is heartbreaking and wonderful, and the ending is just astonishing. He landed it, and I thought,
damn.
The fucker learned how to end a book. God damn. It's beautiful. It is just a brilliant book. And I was so thrilled because it's like seeing this man who I have admired since I started reading him, but whose endings invariably pissed me off.
Yeah.
And seeing him do the Dorothy Hamill 10 landing off the balance beam and just bam right there. It's like, God, he did it. Oh, and so then I started reading some of his other more recent stuff, and it's every time. He has learned how to end a book.
I wonder if he plots it.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know whether he just, but man.
Well, like you said, you have pantsed books, and I think a lot of your listeners that have been with you for a while will know exactly what is coming.
Okay, yes, and the word of the day is talismana, which was a project that you and I decided to work on. That you were going to do jewelry, and I was going to write out the book, and I was pantsing because I just had this really cool idea in which my daughter was going to be a disguised version of my daughter was going to be my main character, and her dog was going to be in the thing as her dog.
I was going to say, don't forget Fred.
No, Fred is unforgettable. And I started writing, and I loved what I got, and it really rolled along well there for a while. But I was, honest to God, pantsing. No outline, no anything. I just sit down each week and write a chapter, and things went amiss. Things went amiss in very strange and very, very bad ways. And all of a sudden, I realized that not only did I hate many of the characters in the book, but I had no idea what story I was telling. I had lost the story that I started with at the beginning, the one that I loved, and I was maybe 60-70% of the way through the book. And I had no idea. I wanted to write, I think, 5 or 6 more chapters, but there were no chapters I wanted to write. I was just lost, and it was because of pantsing. So, and I have never successfully pantsed a book. I have never made it all the way to the end pantsing. I have never successfully written to an extended outline and come up with anything even remotely like what was in the outline. So
and I've done both.
Yeah. Well, see, I am kind of a contrarian writer, It's like, okay, you're telling me I have to do this. Well, watch me not do that.
Yep.
Versus, well, you're telling me, or I'm telling me that I'm not going to know anything. Well, watch me not do that.
Yeah.
So,
And, well, this is the big thing with us too, is we're not telling anybody anything, we're not saying you have to do this or you can't do that. But we're kind of showing you different things that we've learned in the process and what works best for us. But
yeah.
the plotting and pantsing, Take a Chance on Me was extensively plotted. Every single scene was written, and every single scene that I wrote on the outline, I wrote in the book. And then one of my books was one of the 3-day, no, not the 3-day novels, one of the NaNoWriMos was entirely pantsed. And I finished it, but you can tell it's pantsed because the problem with pantsing is you don't know where you're going. You go off of every idea, like with Talismana. And when you're reading the books that have been pantsed, you can tell because the especially the characters, they suddenly come up with new powers, or they are Mary Sue's and they're perfect and they have no flaws and they can do everything and anything, and the plot just goes in these very, very weird directions. There's no foreshadowing. I mean,
yeah. They are almost invariably incoherent at some point. There is no, I'm going to use a movie term here. There is no through line. There is no single coherent story that gets you from the beginning to the end in a comprehensible fashion. And now I can't say this is 100% fact because there is no one true way to write a book.
Yep. Yeah, and that was what I was saying. Yeah, is that we don't tell people you have to do this.
But those books where they have been pantsed and it isn't working out for the writer, you can really tell that it has been pantsed. Just as if there is somebody who is writing to an extended outline and it isn't working out for them, you are going to be bored out of your skull reading the book. So, but and there are people who do this successfully, who have built careers around writing to extended outlines. There are people who have built careers out of pantsing. So obviously it can be done.
Yeah, and Stephen King's books weren't bad. It's just the endings, they didn't fulfill you.
No, and he routinely missed them.
Yeah, and I think he's still an amazing writer. I mean,
oh God, yeah.
Thinking back on what I have read of his, like, he's the only person that can sit there and talk for a page and a half about a screw laying on the ground, and it's fascinating.
Yes.
I mean, I know he bothers Tony. Tony used to read. He doesn't really read anymore, but he used to. And he doesn't like the back and forth, the this person, that person, that person, that person. I'm like, you would hate George R. R. Martin. Like,
oh, yeah.
you would want to kill him or something. But it's just, yeah. So obviously it works for some people because there were some of his books like Thinner and Carrie, some of the shorter ones, and all of his short stories. They're fantastic, and they're pants too.
Yeah. So it depends, and it can change as you go. I have gotten much, much looser with my plotting. I did find it, I have always found it very helpful to do like a line for scene. And at the point where I discovered index cards and the line for scene, all of a sudden I got really, really prolific and very quick at being able to put together good, tight stories and being able to nail them, to go through in a first draft and have the first draft require very little revision. Prior to that, there was a lot of struggling because after my initial pantsing so I did actually pants my very first novel, Hearts and Stitches, and I had no plot cards or no outline or anything for that. I just sat down and I wrote it, and it was coherent-ish. And 7 years later, when it was actually revised to the point where somebody offered to buy it for $500, it was not just god awful anymore, but After that, I learned about the extended outline and I started doing those. And then I discovered my contrarian nature and that no matter what I had in my extended outline, I was going to not write that. So that process actually worked for me. Write an extended outline and then don't write that book. And I think I did. Fire in the Mist, Bones of the Past, Mind of the Magic. God. The Sympathy for the Devil, maybe. And then a couple of other things that I did in between there where I'm forgetting books that I've written. But yeah, where I did an extended outline for each of those, and then the book.
Curse of the Bard or something.
Oh, the Bard's Tale thing. Yeah, I did that, and then I also had some other like solo stuff. But I don't. Honest to Pete, there are a lot of books out there now, so I don't remember all of them or which order I did them in at this point. But yeah. I was doing an extended outline for those things. The Rose Sea with Steve Sterling, we had an extended outline for that. And basically what we were doing with that was just attacking each other's characters as we wrote through the book.
That sounds like fun.
It was a lot of fun. Steve was a lot of fun to write with.
You're showing that the extended outlines can kill like creativity. And then there's the issues with the pantsing. You said something about
it kills your coherence.
And there was one other thing.
Oh, yeah, it causes middle crashes. Yeah, that's when you're writing along, like as with Talismana, you're writing along and you're writing along and you're writing along, and all of a sudden the book dies. It just dies right there, and you realize, I cannot write another word of this story. I hate all of these people. I hate all of these situations, and somebody's going to die, and it isn't going to be me.
Yeah, that actually struck a chord with me because I had done all of this background work. I used your language and your culture clinics to create a werewolf society. And then I decided to write the book, and I didn't plot. And I got about 40,000 words into it, and it died. And I was looking for about a 90,000 word novel. So that literally, I think it was like 43,000, 46,000, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was literally the middle, and it just died. And I really didn't like the characters, which was a shame because I had spent so much time, and I ended up losing the notebook with all of my,
God.
Yeah. With all of my werewolf. And it was a full notebook almost with all of my werewolf society in it. And it makes me so sad because I really loved that society. The entire language was in there.
Yeah. That one move, I lost all of my worlds in one box. That I lost Matron, and I lost the Arhel, and I lost Kore, and I didn't lose Kore because Kore was later. But Glenraven, all of that stuff, just all of those, they just were just in those notebooks and in that box, and that box didn't come with us. So
that sucks so much.
Yeah.
But at least those worlds still live on in the books.
Right. Yeah. And the Glenraven stuff has just reverted to me, so I'm going to be republishing those very soon. I'm so excited about that. So then the other thing is that there is a way to get through this, whether you consider yourself a plotter or a pantser, or whether you're just struggling along trying to get words on the page right now and you don't really have any idea of any way to get through this. There are some things that you can do that can help. And the first thing is, don't label yourself. Don't say, well, don't, I'm a pantser and I only pants, because how's that working out for you? Don't say, I am an extended outline writer and I only write to my extended outline. Again, how's that working out for you? Okay? We have been there. We have done this shit. And if it's not getting you the books that you want, and you're not getting them finished, and you don't love them when you're done, try something different.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to try something different. You're not going to lose your identity just because you don't match your label.
Right.
Labeling is just so limiting and stupid. It's stupid for you, to limit yourself like that.
Yeah, yeah. Labeling is like cutting off all your fingers but your one index finger and saying, okay, so this is me, and I'm going to type all my books with this one finger because that's who I am.
Yeah. And
There are
even
tools.
if it did work for you in the past,
Right.
it doesn't mean that it's always going to work. There's growth in your work. There is an ability to change and learn more things and evolve.
Yes, and my thing is I build new tools. I build new writing tools for every class I put together. I build new writing tools for every book I write. I try to do it differently every single time to learn something from the process that will make it easier for me to do it the next time. And I have gotten pretty good at this because every single time I do something, I learn something from the process of going through and writing the book and then going through, finding my mistakes and fixing those mistakes that makes it easier for me the next time, which is not to say that I do not invent just a passel of new mistakes for the next book, because as you expand the way you think, you expand the really cool kinds of mistakes you can make to really screw up stuff so that you have to figure out how to fix them too.
Yeah, it's kind of like that thing that people say, more money, more problems. And it's an annoying thing because a lot of people who don't have a whole lot of money would say bring on the problems, and I'm one of them. Because once you become that person that has the ability to handle and make more money, you can handle the problems. It's the same thing with writing. When you become that writer that has the ability to expand and try out new things, you make more problems for yourself, but you can handle them.
Right. There is no mistake you can make that you can't fix in writing.
Yes.
Okay. Not in life. There are some mistakes you can make in life that you can't fix. So don't do that.
Yeah.
But in writing, there is no mistake you can't make that you cannot fix. Revision is it's like life version 2, where you get to find all of the crap that you screwed up the first time and make it perfect in the rerun. And it's awesome. I love revision. It is my favorite part of writing a novel, because you take this vision you have in the back of your mind when you start the book that is it is like this light, this little God ray coming down from heaven going, oh, and you're going, yes, that's what I'm going to write. And then that isn't what you write.
It's one of my favorite things is okay, so a lot of people hate Hollywood remakes and reboots, and I can understand why. But sometimes they are done well and they are done for a purpose. I am a huge George Romero fan, and he wrote made a film called The Crazies. And when you watch it, if you haven't seen the remake and you watch it, it's a good movie, but you can tell he was low on budget, and you could tell that a lot of the things that he wanted to do, they end up talking about and like setting the scene. So you know what's going on, but he didn't have the budget for it. When you watch the remake, it is like somebody took that first movie and revised it and showed, not told. You know,
Yeah.
it's like somebody revised it. And I know that the remake is, there's people who love it and people who hate it. I love it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I felt like this was one of the places where a remake was done well and with the original creator's intention in mind. And they wanted to remake it the way I want to remake The Bat with Vincent Price. They wanted to remake it because they loved it, but they saw the places where it wasn't done right. That's what I feel like revision is.
Yeah, that is it.
Remaking it.
Yeah, it is your remake with an unlimited budget and unlimited special effects, where you can go in and see all of the places where you made a mistake and you can make it what you wanted to be. And God, I love that. And I have loved every revision I have ever gotten to do that I was not rushed on and didn't have to push through just so we could put food on the table.
Yeah.
That's, sometimes you don't have the unlimited budget, but if you're not,
I used to wonder, like, how the hell you loved revision so much. What kind of drug were you on? Like Holly's revision drug. Okay, what? what kind of ecstasy are you snorting, not even ingesting? But it makes sense once you have gone through the entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because the vision that you had when you loved the book in first inception, in that first instant where you had this idea and it was perfect, is what you get to make it when you revise.
And you make it
And
better than your original idea,
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah,
Because
because
you've gone through the whole thing.
because you have gone through the whole thing, and all of a sudden all of these little pieces come clicking together. But we are getting so far off track here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, so the thing that was important about that is that if there are ways that you will develop as a writer and your process needs to change. You need to allow yourself to be flexible, to write the book that you are capable of writing now, with the understanding that you are right now writing the best book you are capable of, but that if you take the time to learn this, you will get better. And your next book will be the best book you're capable of, and the one after that, and the one after that. There is no top level. There is no point at which you can't get any better. You can always get better. And that's the joy and the challenge and occasionally the frustration of this job.
Yeah, of many, many creative jobs.
Yes.
Is that you're always getting better.
Yes, you can always look back at the thing that you wrote 5 years ago or 1 year ago and say, okay, well, that was the best I could do at the time. But hey, I see how I could do that better now. And the thing about that is not to look back with regret, but to look forward with hot shit. Now I get a chance to do that better now.
So how do you go through and how do you find that balance?
The thing for me is to look for core conflicts. And this is where we get to talk a little bit about conflict. Conflict is the thing that your character wants, needs, desires, passionately, it must have to survive and can't have. That is a conflict. It is not he said, she said, and they're arguing with each other. It is not just a tiny little obstacle in the way of someone that doesn't mean anything. It is the thing that matters to a character, that is deeply and passionately important to this character, and that character cannot have. And that is that character's conflict. And that is what the story is how does this character meet this need? And again, that takes us back to Maslow's hierarchy. And to no matter where you are in your life, there is some obstacle that you face. There is something that you need. There is something that you want that matters to you. And you transfer this to the characters that you're writing. And by focusing on core conflicts, you are breaking away from a rigid plot outline. You are breaking away from pantsing. You are building a story based around what this character needs and what this character is willing to do to get it, and who this character is going to come up against in the process of meeting this one deep, passionate need. So, I don't know. You're working on stuff. I'm working on stuff. You want to just kind of bounce through what we're working on? What are your characters' needs?
Well, Brock, because I take the romances that I'm writing very weirdly, I guess. I don't, I know there is this formula to a lot of the romances that I've read, and I don't want to do it's that contrarian thing. Mm-hmm. I am my mother's daughter because
Yes,
I see these things and I'm like, even the ones that I like, I have no interest in writing formulaic fiction. I understand there's a place for it, and some of it's very well written and enjoyable and fun, but yeah, no interest. So I don't really have these standard conflicts and stuff. But that's not an excuse to say, oh well, I don't, make up conflicts for my characters. Brock has a bunch of different conflicts, but I think the core one is for self-forgiveness, for not just for what he did to Angie in the past, but also for being who he was. And for a lot of his actions stem from that core conflict of he hates himself. And there is a candy bar scene that's really far ahead that I really, really want to write. And I'm trying to build up to that in order to make sure that the other person in the candy bar scene is not hated, because there's this thing where a lot of people as writers, they want to make the main character the sympathetic character, so they make the other people in these argumentative scenes very hateful or cruel, or they don't look into their reason for being the way they are. And I think that you lose a lot of depth, and you lose, because I love the idea of both of the characters being right, both of the characters being absolutely loved by the reader, and them both seeing, or the reader seeing both of their sides. It's something that I've noticed in life a lot of times, is that I'm very good at seeing both sides and understanding where they're coming from. And it's something that I wanted to hit in that scene, because he's very, I love that character, and he's not an angsty emo guy either. And I like the way that I have built him and created him or created him. And he's a funny guy. He's, kind of, he's really good looking and kind of arrogant about it. And he's got a lot of girls that, like him and follow him, but he doesn't want long-term relationships with them either, because he's still stuck on Angie, even though he won't admit it to himself.
Yeah. I like that about him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a really fun character to write. And even just writing the first maybe 250 words of his scene got me very, very gleeful and joyful last week when I wrote it. So I am looking forward to getting back to writing that scene. And Angie's core conflict is, I'm going to keep that one to myself right now.
Yeah, that's fine, because that you want to kind of unfold. Yeah. My core conflicts, I'm not going to talk about The Owner's Tale, because I've got that almost done. I'm going to talk about Dead Man's Party. My main characters at this point don't even have names. They don't, because this is the process I'm teaching, where I am detaching people from, getting stuck with that whole build your character thing, where they have the tall willowy blonde whose name is Beth, and who has this perfect figure, and she does these things, and these are her hobbies, and the instant you build a character that way, the character dies on the page, because you know everything about them, but you don't know anything important about them. So my guys are showing up without names on the page, and as I write them, their names appear on the page. And I go, oh, okay, so that's who you are, huh?
Well, and to make a note, too, she's not actually writing the first part of the novel.
No, right? I actually am.
I thought you said that you were starting with a whole bunch of the plot and the artifacts.
Yeah, I'm past that. Lesson 5 is when you start the novel. And so
right, but that's what I was saying, is that you didn't just start off writing going into the novel.
Oh God, no. I did.
Sorry.
Yes, some building, but one of the things I did not build was character biographies. I built character conflicts. Yeah, I only built the character conflicts. This person occupies this place in the story and has this compelling need, and the first character who showed up on the page is the killer, and the second person who shows up on the page is the dead man. And, wow. And the thing that I'm going to, it's the first chapter in the book, so I'm going to go ahead and just walk you through what happens here. The first character walks into a jewelry store, and I don't know, I know who he is. I know what he's doing there. I know he is there to kill this other guy. And he walks in and he talks to the jeweler, And they have this friendly conversation, and he's talking about his soon-to-be fiancée and the ring he's getting for a giant pink diamond. And the guy says, but I took her out and just was kind of showing her rings, and this one didn't work out too well. And she didn't like the setting because it was too busy. So, do you have anything in the back and that you could, maybe reset this pink diamond in something a little less gaudy so I can take it and propose to her tonight? And they go into the back room. The girl who is running the shop, covers the shop. The guy very quickly kills the jeweler, cuts his throat, drops him on the floor. Oh, and then he walks out, says, he says he's just in there working on it, is gonna, call me when it's done so that I can propose to her tonight. The girl says, oh, that's awesome. Good luck on your proposal. He says, thank you. He leaves the store, walks to a Starbucks, strips off a toupee, a fat pad, takes jowl things out of his cheeks, pulls off the stuff that was making his skin wrinkly, and leaves. And he says this is, that's 13 out of 81. Wow. Okay? So that's where that scene ends. The next scene, I had no idea what the next scene was going to be, but I started writing it. And I show the dead guy on the floor in the jewelry room. And I thought the girl was going to come in and find him dead in there. But no. The dead guy with his throat cut from ear to ear, who has bled out on the floor, reaches with his hand, covers his throat, pulls himself to a standing position, says, how strange, I'm not breathing. Doesn't say, thinks, how strange, I'm not breathing. I'm going, holy crap, what is this? And hence comes Dead Man's Party, which was the music that was running through my head while I was playing the thing. I have a dead guy in my story who writes a note to Angie with his throat covered so she can see the blood. She says, I'm hurt pretty bad, he writes on this piece of paper. Go get me some duct tape from the store across the street. And she freaks out, runs, goes to get him the duct tape. And he says, well, maybe once I have fixed my throat with duct tape, I'll be able to talk again. But it kind of bothers me that I'm not breathing. And I went, okay, well, there you go. And he has a name, and the other guy now has a name. And now I have this girl who works at a truck stop diner, and the guy that she fell in love with 10 years before that she is hoping will someday show up are my other two characters in this story. And there is this secret plot to take over the world at the back of it. And the guy who is the killer is the one with the secret plot to take over the world.
Yeah, would have been my assumption.
Yeah.
So and my question with all of this is, how much of this are you pantsing and how much of this are you plotting?
I am doing a very light, couple of scenes ahead at a time, sentence outline, where I know how it ends, but how I am going to get there, I don't yet know.
And you know your character conflicts.
Right. I have 4 major character conflicts. The truck stop waitress, the guy who loves her and that she's in love with, although they have never met in person, the dead guy, and the killer. And
with the scenes, like, okay, so you're saying that you kind of plot ahead just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
With the second scene, you thought she was going to discover the dead guy. So
right.
do you write something down that's kind of like dead body, not dead? So you know that's the point of that scene, and then you just don't know how you get there?
No, dead body, not dead was the surprise for me.
Oh, okay.
I had, like I said, I had the first scene written out, and I thought the first scene was going to take me my 1,515 words, which is the week's writing for that project. And I ran short. And I thought, well, I still, I'm doing this hour video for my Patreon guys, so let me go ahead and just pants a scene, and I'll put my dead guy in here and have the girl come in and find the dead guy. And that's not what happened. So that's a pantsing scene. But that was me having this enigma that was I knew he was somehow a character, but he was dead. So I didn't know how he was a character. But he was still in there, and my right brain muse was insisting, no, leave him in there as a character. Leave him alone. We know what we're doing about this. We're just not telling you yet. And so I thought, okay, well, I got a dead guy on the floor. I've got to do something with that. So I started writing, and his hand moved. And I was like, oh, okay.
So that's one of those huge bonuses of not over plotting.
Right.
You get these really, really amazing moments.
Right, because I had this conflict, and the conflict was, why do I have a dead guy in my story? And and I didn't know. But I didn't take him out because, the right brain is saying, no, leave that. Dead man's party. Keep the song in your head. Dead man's party. It's important. And that's all I had with that. And is it Dead Man's Party? Who could ask for more?
But as far as like trying to find what are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself as to how to get to this state,
to the core conflict? Yeah, because every character that you have, every important character in your story has to have a core conflict. So to get that core conflict, you have to ask, what matters in your story and to whom. Okay, well, the thing that matters to my villain is he had his hands on total world control 10 years earlier, and someone figured it out and destroyed what he had set up. So but they didn't know he was the one who set it up. He had managed to keep himself back from all of the people who were actually visibly involved in his plot. So his core conflict is, I am going to destroy the people who foiled my first attempt, and then I am bringing my process back online because it will still work, and I will own the world. And he is based on a real world character, unfortunately. And then for the second person, his core conflict is he's dead, and he wants to not be dead, which is a big conflict.
Yeah, I'm not so hopeful for that dude, but because I've read your books before.
Well, I have a little more hope for him now than I did because of the artifact. And how the artifact, after I wrote that scene, the artifact told me what, or my right brain muse told me what it had back there. And I went, oh, that's actually kind of cool. All right.
So that's another thing that you've got in your plot is this artifact that can make a difference.
Right.
Okay.
The artifact is feeding me. The artifact was where I got my characters. The artifact is where I got their conflict, because the artifact is what defines the world.
Yeah, that's where you started.
Yeah, that's where I started. And this is a process I have used with maps and all kinds of other things. And this time I just made it very simple for people so that they get something a little smaller. Not a map of Matron or Corey or, because those things go very large. So then after you figure out what matters to your story and to whom, then you figure out, why does it matter? Why does he want to rule the world? Why does the dead guy not want to be dead? That one seems pretty obvious. But there are some other things in the back of there. Why does my waitress why is she working in a truck stop when she could be doing a million other things? Why is the guy who loves her unable to find her? Who were they to each other, and why does this matter? Why do you, the writer, care? And this, I got to tell you, this is the biggest thing. And this is I have read a lot of other people's manuscripts. This is the thing where the story lives or dies. Is not, why does your character care? Because that has to be in there. And you don't have a story if it isn't. But why do you care? Because if you don't give a shit about, if you are just writing to formula, if you have just made these people who have nothing in common with you, you are not pulling anything out of your own life and putting it on the page, the story may be proficient, it may be well written, but if you are not in it, it is not going to talk to anybody else.
Yeah. It's amazing how many books get published that are like that. At least in the, and I mean, I know I keep going back to this, but this is one of my pet peeves, is that romance is such a beautiful idea. It's so much a beautiful genre, but you get a lot of formulaic writing where it's just the company is trying to make more money off of more books. And even with the self-published romances that are out there, a lot of the self-published romances are very formulaic and very, very plug and dial and go along, and you can feel it when the writer is putting stuff out there to just get another book out instead of to maybe express something.
Right. It takes no more time and effort as a writer to put yourself into the story.
I'd say it takes less effort.
Yeah, really, because the story, if you are in it, the story will write itself a lot of the time. Or at least your fingers will find themselves moving a little bit more easily across the keyboard as you're working your way through.
Maybe even more motivated, quicker, writing faster, writing more often.
Yeah. That's, for me, there are themes of survival, themes of abuse, themes of people doing very bad things that I have drawn directly from my own life. I know with you, the animal rescue thing was a big damn deal, and so was some of the abuse stuff. Yeah. Shit that there was the guy at the bus stop in Costa Rica, man, that not just changed my life, but it changed the way I view the world. And that sort of unexpected ferocity has shown up in so much of my work with women and men too, reacting to unexpected attacks with brutal and nearly deadly force.
Yeah, a lot of your female characters, they are very violent when they need to be, when necessary, and they're not apologetic for it, and I love that, because there are so many books out there that show women as not just the wilting flower or whatever, but also if they have to be violent or anything, there is a lot of I don't know, drama revolving around that. And
regret. Yeah,
there's the regret. And it a lot of times it comes across as, okay, well, this is what I should put in here. And I like the fact that yours aren't like that, and part of that is you understand the characters too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, you have to. It really helps to have had some real shit in your history. Really, it really does. And you can't say, well, I am really grateful that adult male came up behind me at the bus stop when I was all alone by myself and groped me and started rubbing himself up against me and stuff. But I have gotten a lot of mileage out of that fucker.
Yeah. So it's just about the silver linings.
Yeah.
So that's it's an important thing to remember too. Why does it matter to you? Because remember, that's going to come out in your writing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, that is an important thing. And the fact that I had it within me to turn and attack him with my umbrella and run after him so that he ran away when I was 14, that I have never regretted that. I was so glad I did it. And I'm really grateful I didn't catch him, because that would not have gone well for me. I weighed 90 pounds at the time, but that was just a strange situation. So then you have put yourself into it, and you have what matters in your story, and to whom does it matter, and why does it matter, and why do you, the writer, care? And then you go to, well, how do you connect to your characters? The question that you have to ask here is, I had this writer ask me, well, I'm really having a hard time. I want to write YA. But I don't know how to get into that mindset. And she was about my age, late 50s. Maybe she might have been 60. And she said, I want to write YA, but I am not connecting to the characters. And the answer to that is not, well, try to remember when you were that age, but write for your own age group. Write for people who will get who you are right now. There are people who, when they are older, still remember being 13, and for whom the issues of being a 13-year-old are still fresh. But if that's not you, then you're trying to write for an audience that isn't going to get you and that you don't get. So part of finding your core conflict is identifying who you really need to be writing for. And sometimes it's not this target market of, oh, well, YAs are really hot right now, so I want to write YAs.
Well, I mean, she could have been looking at writing YAs because she wanted to change the world in a positive manner. She maybe wanted to, this is coming from somebody who can't have kids. So far, I could see wanting to write YA as a way to connect to younger people. Mm-hmm. When I didn't get a chance with any of my own. I could see wanting to maybe put some magic out there in the world that is so very, very scary right now for younger people.
Yeah.
But I can see what you're saying is, then this goes back to labeling. If you identify yourself as this person who wants to write YA and you're so invested in it, but you can't get in that mindset, maybe it's time to put that aside for a little bit. You don't even have to say I let it go permanently. You can just say, okay, well, I'm not gelling with this right now. Let me try to write something else in the meantime. It might be easier to let go in that way,
right?
If you're telling yourself it's, and you mean it, that it's not a permanent, disconnection.
Right. Well, it's, why do you want to write the genre you want to write? If you are not connecting to the audience for that genre, it's the wrong genre.
Yeah, if you have really good reasons for wanting to write for that genre, it just might not be the right genre for you.
I mean, I have written some YAs. My Moon and Sun series, for which the third book is the thing that I am starting after I finish the Longview series, which is almost done now. I'm going to be writing that simultaneously with the novel that I'm writing for this thing, for how to write a novel. And
but when you wrote your YAs, Joe was also very young.
Mm-hmm. Right, but I still, as noted, vividly remember being 14, and my 14 was not a fun 14. So the characters that I am writing that book, in that book, they were partly based on you, partly based on Mark, and partly based on Joe, but they were also based on me when I was that age, and on my brother, not so much my sister. It was this case of these kids being separated from their parents in a very dangerous world, in a very dangerous time. And I can still put myself back in living in a country that was in the middle of a civil war, which, that was Guatemala, and living back in a country that was having a communist insurgency at the time, and was slipping very anti-American, and that was Costa Rica, and, we were there. And that's a lot of what I am writing in Moon and Sun is pulled from that part of my life. And that's still very fresh for me. Yeah, it's bunches of years later, just because it was so traumatic and so burned into my memory that it has made very good backstory. If I were trying to write something based on today's teens in a modern universe,
with cell phones and Snapchat and, and all the apps and all the internet,
that's not something that I can identify with as somebody who's 14. But the part of the world that I lived in that was 14 is a universal. It is a place with terrible danger and with life and death situations, and kids who were the ages that I was at that time having to deal in that world with those dangers. So you can write any genre with which you can identify, but you have to know why you want to write that genre. And for me, that genre is the first chance that I have really had to deal with that part of my life, which I've never used in fiction before, and to deal with it from the perspective of somebody who was that age, and to deal with the terrible stuff that was going on at the time. living. There was a ruined church that had been destroyed in an earthquake. That was down, 100 years ago, maybe. That was down the road from us when I lived in Guatemala. And there was, at the front of that church, a line of bullet holes, head high, where recently enough that there were still bloodstains on the wall of the church, there had been a bunch of people lined up and executed along that wall. This was in Chiquimula, Guatemala. And my parents took us out, my brother, my sister, and me, and we were walking around the town, and we saw the ruins of this beautiful old church, beautiful old Catholic cathedral. And when we got up to it, there were those bullet holes, and I remember vividly seeing them. I remember vividly seeing the stains. I remember vividly my father turning us around and walking us back to the Friends Mission. And it took me some years to realize what it was that I had seen there. What the freshness of the bloodstains on the walls and that line of bullet holes actually meant. It took me years to, and that was after the earthquake. It was like this horrible conflux of stuff, and that stuff came back to me, and all of a sudden I went, oh my God, yes, we were in the middle of a Civil War zone. I did look down the barrel of a machine gun that was pointed at me when we were stopped crossing the border, where they were searching vehicles. There was, we could have been dead that day. And I was looking into the eyes of a kid not much older than me, if older at all, who was pointing the machine gun at me through the car and thinking, no, this can't be real. This can't happen. And then as you hit adulthood and you think back on it, you think, shit.
Yeah.
We could have been the family found.
So I don't know how to get us back to the...
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. That's
No, that's fine. It's stuff that's important because it's making a point and it's telling people, pull from your life. But
it's just the question there is, how do you connect to your characters, and what story are you telling, and for whom are you telling that story? And for me, I guess the main story of Moon and Sun, the two books that exist, and then the third book, is even if you are 14, 15 years old, you are tougher than you think you are, and you can survive a lot more than you think you can. And just your objective at this point is just to stay alive, get through whatever you're getting through, and move on.
Yeah.
And
so it's how to connect with your characters,
right?
How to use your own life,
right?
And this kind of makes, I guess, plotting a lot easier and more fun too, is if you are leaving it a little bit more loose, but you understand certain things like the core conflicts. If you can make them something that matters to you, it's going to be a lot easier to write too.
Yeah. And then finally, once you are past deciding on your core conflict and figuring out why the core conflict matters and to whom, then you have to break the core conflict into parts. And these parts are what goes wrong. Dead guy gets his throat cut in the jewelry store. That's a big thing to go wrong.
Yeah, you would think that would be the final thing to go wrong.
You would think that would. No, my muse said, haha, gotcha. He's not dead. Well, he is dead. He is dead because he's not breathing. But yeah, yes. And how does that work and why? And my artifact told me how that works. And I was like, whoa, oh, that's so cool.
I'm wondering how much you're pulling from this Bob Zombie thing, because he was dead and also killed by somebody. And your first thing when you said, I'm not breathing, and that's what he's thinking, is like, oh, wow, Bob Zombie.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I like your versions of undead. They're very different from mine.
Yes. It was completely unexpected. And he's not actually undead. He's just not breathing. And I know why. And that was cool. So what goes wrong, and then who it affects, not just the character that it affects right then, but who it affects more broadly. How does this thing that has happened creep out into your story world and change things? And when does it change them? And then who tries to solve it? And then because it is fiction, how does trying to solve it make it worse? Because if you are writing fiction, your job is never to make things better. It is always to make them worse. Yeah. Yes, until the end. At the end, you have to figure out how to make them better. And that is one of the fun jobs of being a writer, is to cause all of these problems and then to force your muse to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I rarely start a book and actually have the ending. But when I do come up with the endings, it's not like with you, where your ending is always different. Usually it's like, oh my God, that fits so perfect. And then it still fits.
Yeah.
Just like with Leaving Wanda Lucia, I knew exactly how to end that one about midway through, and it stayed.
Cool.
And while I was plotting the second book, the ending came to me. And I'm obviously not there yet, but I don't imagine how it could be any better.
Cool.
So I'm very happy with that. But yeah, that knowing also where your book is going to end can be very helpful if that's something that you have, but don't feel like you have to have the ending in order to write the book either, because you could come up, or if you do have an ending, don't get too stuck with it, because you could come up with some magic when you're writing.
Yes. Well, I am the proof of that, because I always have an ending. I don't think I have ever used my an ending because I always come up with something better. And generally I do it like a scene or two before the end, when all of a sudden I go, oh, wait, I see how I could really end this. So I have an ending.
And it's something that you have, it's like that target. Something that Sid Field said is that, you want to have the target to shoot for with the ending. But like you say, don't get too stuck with it, because our muses have a tendency to come up with shit. So often in the moment at the very end or wherever, that can save the day.
There have on time in two instances been stories where my ending was, and then I killed them all, followed by going through the revision, figuring it out, and coming up with an actual ending. Because I just got stuck. And Talismana, unfortunately, is one of the two and has not yet been fixed, because it is still at, and then I killed them all. I'll get back to it. I will. I will get
Glass
there.
House ended with a sentence that was something like, figure out how to finish this last bit, because I knew the ending. I still know the very ending with the P.O. box and all that stuff, but the ending with the I was about to say his name, but I can't because I don't want to give it away, but the ending with the antagonist, it was like, figure out how to fix this shit. That was what it was, because I'd gotten to a certain part, and it's only about 2 or 3 scenes that I needed to finish, but I hadn't worked on the magic, so I didn't know how any of it worked. And I knew that, as you say, magic can't be what solves it. It has to be, magic makes it worse.
Right. And magic makes the problem worse, and the character has to solve it.
And I love that too, because the reader obviously has no magical powers. I mean, you could say you're Wiccan, and I respect that, but no, you can't shoot laser beams out of your fingertips or anything like that. And that's the magic I'm talking about. So with that, it's like connecting with the reader more.
Yes.
That this to solve it doesn't use magic. It uses what I have as the reader. So
right. That is essential to good storytelling, is the reader has to be able to identify with the character, which means A, the character has to go through some serious shit, because the reader is going to have gone through some serious shit. B, the reader has to, or the character has to solve his own problems. And C, the character has to do it in a way that is comprehensible to the reader, understandable and identifiable, so that the reader says, yes, that's it. Boy, if I could have done that. That could have been me. That could have been me if I was Zeus. No, that doesn't work. That one last thing there is that when you have your core conflict and you figure out what goes wrong and who it affects and who tries to solve it and how this makes it work, then the surprise that solves it has to come at a cost. It can't be free. So again, that's like the no magic rule, but that's just a little bit more. The character has to lose something, has to hurt in some way to make this happen. Has to go through the fire in order to come out the other end, and does not come through unscathed. There is some scathing in there.
Yeah.
I loved your ending with Wanda Lucia, and I'm not going to give away your ending.
Oh yeah, she definitely had to go through the fire. There was no easy fix for her.
Right. No, and she was scathed when she came through. I had a character who had to swim past an alligator up out of water where she had been trapped by a guy who was trying to kill her in a car that he had driven into the water, or that she had driven, one of the two of them. I don't remember who was driving at that time. But she had to get out of the car alive and swim through the alligator after fighting this guy in the car as it was in the water. The takeaway there is that you do one sentence per scene. This is the flexible formula, such as it is, that I use. I still like to do index cards, and even now that I'm using Scrivener, I use the little index card feature in there. And most of the time, I will work out my conflicts by writing out protagonist versus antagonist in setting with twist. And that covers your protagonist, your antagonist, your conflict, your twist, your setting. As in killer slices throat, that's conflict, of 13th victim in jewelry store without cause, or without visible cause, or without visible reason. Okay, so that would be the sentence for that thing, and that was what happened. And then the next one would be dead guy, okay, which is your protagonist, with throat cut, that's your conflict, stands up in jewelry room, not breathing.
You think that would be the twist?
Yeah, the not breathing is the twist. The stands up is the sort of the antagonist of the scene, in that if you're dead and not breathing, why are you thinking and standing up? Yeah. So you are struggling with, well, I'm dead but not white. So, and that's it. That's, if you are doing any kind of, you can get a whole scene out of that very easily, and you just do these little sentence scenes, and then you let your muse give you the scene. And one of the things for my Patreons, and one of the things that is actually in lesson 5, is that scene where I wrote out those two scenes, and just it's on video live so that people can see my screen. You can see the timer going off every 10 minutes because I write to a timer, and you can see me getting the words. You can see the little word count meter over up at the top where you're seeing how many words I'm getting, and I got over 1,515 words for the day. And you can actually see raw first draft being written, because I wanted to demonstrate, well, if this is all you know, then you just let it go and you get your words and you don't push it and you don't worry about your typos or your spelling. You just go through and you get your stuff on the page. And then the second thing is, when you are doing your writing with your scene, you always keep your conflict in mind. You always keep, why does this matter to the character, and what does the character have to go through to reach his objective? And every scene has a conflict, and the big conflict in the novel is not necessarily the conflict of the scene. It's just what matters to that character right now. What's his obstacle, and what does he have to get past? And then the third thing, and this is the biggie, and this is where writing out massive outlines will kill you, will kill the spontaneity of your story. And this is where not plotting at all will really screw you up, is you need to be willing to follow surprise ideas. But those surprise ideas still need to answer the conflict question and the character question. And if you can keep these things in mind, you can get really good first drafts. They won't be perfect. They will in no way be perfect, but they can be really good.
Okay, so that is our episode on plotting versus pantsing, and I think our excitement for this topic showed.
Yes.
And we also veered off in many different ways, but I think that most of the time we had our reasoning for it. So,
Yeah.
it was to explain things. So yeah, that is our episode. If you have any questions or anything about it, if you want us to cover this topic again because you feel, you want other explanations of different kinds of plotting or pantsing or anything like that, or maybe some ideas on how to do it, maybe we can do a mini episode again.
Yeah.
Just you can either go to the blog at alonewithinvisiblepeople.com and comment on the topic, the actual episode name. And also, we will probably be putting in an index because I've had more than one or two people ask me if we can make it a little bit clearer where they go, so they don't have to keep scrolling to find the episodes. So we'll probably be putting in an index that's a little bit easier for you guys to find certain episodes. And we also have the forums. We're going to have a topic for this episode. So again, you can find us at hollyswritingclasses.com. The forums are free. Just have to create an account, and you can go into our podcast. It'll be Alone with Invisible People podcast forum topics, and go in there and post away with your questions. You can follow us on the socials. It is on Instagram and Twitter, AIARWIP. And that is, you can also use the hashtag Alone with Invisible People or Alone in a Room with Invisible People. And you can find us on Facebook at Alone in a Room with Invisible People. But for the most part, we are most active on the forum, where we can actually interact with you guys. That is our favorite place to kind of get to know you guys better and have your take on our topics and share what you've gone through. So and also I wanted to say thank you very much for everybody that has submitted your stories for our Halloween episode. We actually have Mark's Halloween recordings done. He sent them to us. So we have those done. We will get the contracts out to the people who have been accepted, and we will be sending out the emails next week to let you know who was accepted and who was not. And we really, really appreciate the fact that you guys put so much effort into getting these stories to us, because you guys did a really great job, and we are very excited to put out this episode.
It was, yes, and we received more stories than we could use.
Yes.
And that is an amazing position to be in for a brand new podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we received a lot of stories. So, especially right there at the end, too. I knew that there was going to be a jump, but my goodness.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah, not quite that many. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you so much for everybody that has submitted. If you didn't get in, it could just be room. It could just be, that didn't meet the specs, because I know a couple people came in quite a bit over 500 words. So, better luck next time, because we are wanting to do this again next year, hopefully, depending on our schedules and everything.
Yeah.
Again, we would love to have you on the forums. We love to connect with our listeners. And I think that's it. Anything else, Holly?
Just one thing to keep in mind as we go. When you consider labeling yourself something, stop, because you are much more and much deeper and much more full of mystery and passion and talent and skills than you can even imagine. So don't say, I am anything. Yeah. Because you are more than you can even imagine. And the more you go through life, and the more you learn, and the more you challenge yourself, the more you will discover how much more you are.
Absolutely. Beautifully put. Okay, so thank you guys so much for listening. We love you guys, and I guess we'll see you in the next episode.
We'll see you next week.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
You want to write You love words, you love fiction, but you don't know where to start, or how to middle, or where to finish. I do. I'm Holly Lisle, and I've been doing this professionally since 1991. And I know how I did what I did to go pro, and I'll be happy to show you what I've learned. Start with my free 3-week flash fiction class at hollyswritingclasses.com.